Well, folks, if you talk to people out there, they will tell you crime is going up in their cities. They feel it. They see it. Many of them have been victims of crime. In fact, you do any poll, you'll see the large majority of Americans say crime is on the rise. Yet what happens? The media tells us the opposite. Crime is down. Crime is down. Crime is down. Well, how can they say this? Well, they say this because they're not getting the whole story. There's an editorial in the Wall Street Journal by a friend of ours named John Lott. The headline reads, "The media say crime is going down. Don't believe it." Well, why shouldn't we believe it? To help us figure this all out, I want to bring in the author of that editorial, the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, former senior advisor for research and statistics at the Justice Department's Office of Justice Programs. Dr. John Lott is with us. John, great to have you back on the program.
It's great to talk to you, Grant. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so first off, I go through your editorial and I see that there's a hell of a lot of police departments that aren't reporting crime back to the FBI who puts these reports together. If they're not reporting the crime, how do you know whether it's up or down?
Well, the FBI doesn't put zeros in there. They kind of guess what it is, and I can go and argue that I don't think they're doing a very good job of it. But I think there's something more fundamental going on, and that is the collapse of policing and the impact it has on the rate that people report crime. So what you have to understand is that the FBI looks at reported crimes that report to police. But we've known for a long time that most crimes aren't reported to police. About 42% of violent crimes are reported. Only about 32% of property crimes are reported. And so in order to get an estimate of total crimes, there's something called the National Crime Victimization Survey, which surveys 240,000 people each year. They've been doing this for about 50 years. And over time, in the past, the FBI numbers of reported crimes have tended to move in a similar direction to the total crimes from the National Crime Victimization data, but not over the last few years. Over the last few years, they've gone in opposite directions. So, for example, in 2022, while the FBI reported a 2% drop in violent crimes reported to police, the National Crime Victimization data showed a 42% increase in violent crimes. And,
all right,
there's
John,
some obvious reasons why that's
This gets right to the heart of what I'm saying. When you ask people, the boots on the ground, right, the everyday folks, they tell you crime is up in my city. And that you got the government and the media telling you, no, it's not, you're stupid. Meanwhile, their kid was mugged or they had their car jacked and who knows what else. So why is this, where is this disconnect happening here?
Right. Well, I mean, just first, I think most people, if they go to a CVS or Walgreens in Washington, D.C. or many other cities, they'll see that much of the merchandise now is behind glass, that you have to go and have some sales clerk come up and unlock things and stand next to you while you read the packages. And they knew that wasn't true a few years ago. But there are a couple basic things that are going on. One is, as I say, the collapse of policing. If you look at, this is true for all cities, but if let's say you look at cities with more than 1 million people in them, in the 5 years before COVID, 44% of violent crimes that were reported resulted in arrest. It started falling in 2020, and by 2022, it was down to 20%. So you went from 44% to 20% of violent crimes resulted in arrest. That's reported crimes. If you look at all violent crimes, reported, unreported, only 8% of violent crimes in those cities resulted in arrest. And the drops were even greater for property crimes. Only 1% of total property crimes in those cities resulted in arrest. And, arrest doesn't mean that they're charged. And not everybody who's charged gets prosecuted, let alone convicted. And so for many violent crimes, and surely for property crimes, criminals have essentially nothing to worry about in terms of getting caught and punished. And what happens is that
Two takeaways from this. One, you have repeat offenders. Repeat offenders are the ones responsible for most of the crime. So if you're not arresting the criminals, you're going to have the same criminals out on the street doing this over and over again. Correct?
Right. Well, and the other thing is whether they report crimes to police depends in part on whether they think anything's going to happen. If they don't believe that people are going to be arrested and convicted, then they don't have the same incentives to report crimes to police. And so what's happened at the same time that we've seen this collapse in policing, we've also seen a huge drop in the rate that people are reporting crimes to police. And the problem is the FBI data that they're relying on relies solely on crimes that are reported. And even that has problems with it. If you compare the national
I saw in
crime,
your article, John, I saw in your article in 2022, only 31% of police departments nationwide, including Los Angeles and New York, didn't even report crime data to the FBI. So you got a problem with data coming in, the data going out. The whole thing's skewed, and it's designed to protect Democrats in the end. Dr. John Lott, it is always great having you on the program. You do great work at the Crime Prevention Research Center. Thank you for coming on tonight.
thank you very much.
Absolutely.